All right. Well, I think, Donnie, if it's okay, we can go ahead and get started.
Okay, yeah.
Does that
Um,
work?
it looks like Janet Mercury from San Diego she raised her hand. So I'm not sure what that is about. But okay, I'll keep checking on it though.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. If you'll just bear with me as I get our, um, our PowerPoint going here. You guys should all be able to see the PowerPoint that I'm got here. So, you know, I can do presenter view, but I sometimes find that I can't see everything that I want to show you or what my next slide is. So if you'll forgive me, I'm gonna do this and sort of hope it's not too tacky, but I'm gonna do it this way so you can, still see all the slides, but I can still see my notes too. So thanks everyone for your time today. We'll try to keep this to an hour. I really want to respect your time and just say thank you for being here. So while we're waiting, and if I can do this, there are so many different functions available with Zoom, and I'm trying, just want to make sure that I can see everything. Okay, so I've got the chat up. Thank you everyone for your patience as we make sure that we're doing this right. Okay, and Donnie's here for backup as well. So while we're waiting, if anybody else is popping on, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. And if you would like to put your answers in the chat, that would be great, because I think that that's a good way to break up, some of the monotony of a typical presentation, and to help us connect with one another. So I had sent out an email reminder yesterday asking you to think about a couple of questions. So one of the questions is just, what is it that you miss most about the pre-COVID world that we can't do now? For example, I'll give you two of the things that I miss the most, besides traveling, obviously, and getting out to Oklahoma and all of the other wonderful places that we go to throughout the United States. I miss hugs. I miss hugging my friends. I'm an affectionate person and I love being able to just put my arms around someone, just give them a big squeeze. That's something that I really miss. The other thing that I miss is going to see live music. That's one of the things that it just gives me so much energy and so much fuel that can sustain me for a long time. We haven't been able to do that. So those kinds of things, like what I'm just really curious to see what kinds of things you miss doing now that we're in this world of COVID and social distancing. So some of the folks have said gathering in person, absolutely, at any level besides the person that you live with or the people that you live with. I know we're all trying to stay pretty isolated, especially as the numbers are spiking again. Donnie, who is signed in as our Kevin Stretch, says that she misses chips and salsa in a restaurant. I get that. Dude, totally. Stuff like that. Just let me know what you're missing. And the second thing, second question that I'm going to ask and hope that you'll pop into the chat are just, what are some of the scariest things or the biggest concerns that you have for your community organization that have been brought about by COVID-19? So for example, is it, hey, I'm not sure that our membership is still going to be active once we get out of this, or once it's safe to meet again, those kinds of things. So if you want to pop any of those things in the chat, it would be great just to have some fodder for talking later. Yes, Mariah says she misses traveling and getting to see her extended family. I miss getting to see Mariah, who is my extended family. Haven't been able to squeeze her in like 10 months. It's awful. It's awful. So anyway, you guys can go ahead and keep popping those things in the chat. We'll talk about them throughout the course of today's presentation. But mostly what we're going to be talking about today is how to keep your community organization active during the pandemic. And then we're going to spend a few minutes at the end talking about the respond, rebuild, recover. I always forget which order they go in. The respond, rebuild, recover grants that your community organizations might have gotten. So here's sort of an agenda. I do want us to just for a moment touch on some of the COVID-19 basics and best practices, because I do think it's still really important for us to be thinking about these things, to be talking about these things, because they're still relevant, and some people still, you know, they're kind of constantly changing. So we'll talk about that for just a minute, and then we're going to talk. This is what the bulk of the presentation today will be about, is COVID in your organization. What it is that, what it is that you can be doing to keep your organization active and doing stuff. And I apologize, I'm trying to make some of these things go away up here so that we can see more of, no, there we go. There we go. That's what I wanted to do. Thanks for your patience. Okay, so then we'll go over some tools. Some of the tools that you can use to stay in touch while you're still distanced from one another. I'm going to go over this how to help quadrant, which I hope will start to spark some ideas for you and give you some resources and thoughts, ideas for staying in touch with your organization during COVID. Then we'll talk about some of the Cherokee Nation resources that are available to you, as well as have you do some brainstorming about local community resources and needs. And then, like I said, we'll spend just a little bit of time at the end talking about the CARES Act, RRR grant reporting and wrap up. So we'll start with those best practices. Again, a lot of this is, you've heard it a million times now, but I do want to, it warrants saying again, because it is so important. So right now, especially as we're seeing the spike in COVID cases increase at levels that were even higher, sort of on a national scale than what they were at the beginning of the pandemic. You know, you want to be sure that you stay home, especially if you're exhibiting any sort of symptoms like fevers, cough, tastelessness, persistent headaches, fatigue. Those are telltale signs that you may have COVID. And if you've been in contact with a COVID positive person, someone who has tested positive in the last week or couple of weeks, it's important that you stay home so that you don't spread it if you get it. It's important to get tested if you suspect that you have come in contact with someone who's tested positive, or maybe there's just been you've gone to a restaurant or an event and then people came down with COVID symptoms. You might want to get tested then. It's really important for us to remember to protect those who are most vulnerable in our population. So those could be people with autoimmune diseases or any kind of immunity issues, those who are elderly. There are a lot of different things that put people in high-risk categories, and it's just important to be mindful of that as we are in this new season of elevated COVID levels. And of course, avoid large gatherings as much as you can, and I know that that's not fun. Cherokee people and those of us in this group, we love being together. We love seeing one another. I had a mentor of mine explain it this way, and I thought this made a lot of sense. Right now, we are distancing from one another because we love each other so much. And while that is terrible and it's not very fun, it's the best thing that we can do to show each other that we love one another. So for example, like this weekend, my sister-in-law is having a birthday party. It's her 40th birthday party. It's a surprise, so don't tell her. But I'm not gonna go because there's gonna be 30 people there that most of whom are outside of my tiny little bubble, and I don't want to spread and I don't want to get it from them and then take it to people who I might see at Thanksgiving, which is only going to be 2 people, my mom and my stepdad. But again, you know, you just want to make sure that you're avoiding large gatherings, although it might be heartbreaking. If you do have to meet in person, of course, here are just some best practices for that as well. If you're in a place where the weather's nice outside and you can meet outdoors, that's a good option. If you're meeting indoors, try to ensure that you're in a place that has good ventilation systems. I have an office in a building in downtown, and I've not even been going there because it's an old building, and I don't believe the ventilation systems are very good, and they're all tied in with all of the other offices. So we just want to make sure, again, you're making the best choices for your situation. Ensure that everyone who's coming to an event that you might be attending is symptom-free. If you have the capacity to, if you're holding the event or the small gathering, make sure that you're doing temperature checks before people come in, and making sure there's opportunities for them to disinfect and things like that. And then make sure that people know it's okay if they don't come, if they don't feel comfortable with it. Again, like my sister-in-law's party, I said, I really hate to miss this, but I don't feel comfortable coming. And it just made me feel a lot better when other people who were doing this party said, you know what, that's okay, we understand. So just giving people that latitude to make the decisions that they feel most comfortable with is something that you can do to help. And then finally, here are some of those other best practices for when you are gathering or leaving your home. Obviously, wear a mask. We all know that that's sort of the number one thing that we can do that's a pretty low-hanging fruit in terms of not spreading COVID-19. Wash and moisturize your hands, especially as weather is getting drier in many parts of the country because it's getting cooler. When we wash our hands, it leaves us prone to having dry skin, which can crack and make it easier for external viruses to enter. I know that the respiratory system is how COVID is tracked, but it's still just important. Moisturize your hands. Plus, you just don't want ashy, nasty hands. Okay, cover your mouth with your elbow if you're coughing. Don't share food with people, and avoid buffet style foods. I know here in Indiana, where I am, that buffet style has been kind of outlawed. I don't think that's the right word, but they have, the state of Indiana Board of Health has said no buffets at restaurants. So try to avoid those if you are at a gathering. Stay 6 feet apart from people that you don't live with, and keep surfaces clean. So again, thank you so much for indulging me as I went over some of these basics that seem very simple, but it's being said because it works and it's important. And there's something I wanted to bring to your attention. Yesterday, my dad texted me an article from Apple News that was applauding Cherokee Nation for being one of the only regions that has done a really good job of tempering the virus. And so that just shows that we have this wonderful leadership who is listening to science, and they're backing it up with resources for its people, and making sure that people are actually equipped to get on the other side of this virus healthily and safely. So that's what we really want. So enough about the best practices that we've heard over and over the last few months. And we'll start talking about tools for staying in touch with your community organization while you're also staying apart. So staying in touch while you're staying apart. So, okay. Here are some tools. I thought I had some animations on this, but I think they're not working because I'm not in presenter view. So we'll wing it. So the number one thing that I think that the number one tool that we can use to stay in touch with one another is Zoom. That's what we're on right now. Now there's a couple of different versions of this. There's Zoom for Business and Zoom Pro. Pro gives you the option to do something like this, where it's sort of a webinar presentation where you as the host and anybody else that you make host control all of the different aspects of Zoom and of your webinar. So for example, I can't see the faces of all the people who are on this call today. So this is really good for presentations if there's one person who's really going to be in charge of this and they're presenting information, and you don't want to get interrupted or have a lot of folks available to unmute themselves and jump in. So that's the Pro. Now, if you're wanting to have something where you can hold, 100 people for more than 45 minutes, you want to go with the business version. And that's going to give you a little, that would be good for like meetings, because what you would do in the Zoom Business is you would have a ribbon of all of the faces of everybody who's on the call. You'll see everyone. It kind of looks like the Brady Bunch, and whoever the host is has the ability to mute and unmute, and people. It's a lot easier for actually holding meetings like that. So those are a couple of tools that Zoom allows you to have. I want to just say something, because I know that a couple of the groups have been a little bit hesitant about using Zoom because of some of the security issues that were happening at the beginning of the pandemic. There were some people that were able to hop on that weren't invited, or somehow got the link, or hacked computers or whatever. That is not happening anymore. Zoom has upped its like baseline security. So every time, even the most basic Zoom subscription requires the host to be able to let people in. So we're not seeing those inappropriate hackers jump into your meetings anymore. So what we can assume safely, Zoom is totally safe now. You just, know what you're doing. If you need help downloading Zoom, making that available to the other members of your organization, we can certainly help you figure that out. I think Vince, one of the staff members of CCO, has a little cheat sheet that he can make available to anybody who's interested, just to make sure that you have access to that and are able to navigate it and know how to use it. It's really not that difficult once you get the hang of it. The other option, if Zoom isn't the way you want to go, is Google Hangouts. CCO has established and made sure that every CCO organization has access to a Google account, which will allow you to use Google Hangouts. Personally, I have found that Google Hangouts is a little less reliable than Zoom, and it's you don't have an option to like send a meeting invite ahead of time to a lot of people. So that's why I still prefer Zoom when we're doing this, but Google Hangouts will work, and you have automatic free access to that through your Gmail account that was set up by CCO. And you can always just do a good old phone call. If for whatever reason, in rural areas, and many of you may be in rural areas, sometimes the internet just isn't very reliable, but at least you can get cell service. Freeconferencecall.com has a great service that's free for conference calls. And the thing that I don't like about this, sort of the con, if you put it on the con list, is it does make it a little more difficult. People end up talking over each other. And at least with Zoom, you can kind of have an idea of who's talking, because their little face, the box around their face will light up, so you know that they're the ones talking. And it's a little bit easier to read the room. It's not perfect. It's not as good as being in person, but at least you have an opportunity to kind of read the room and see somebody else is getting ready to say something. But if an internet-based tool doesn't work, freeconferencecall.com allows you register one time, and then it gives you like a permanent phone number and PIN number to that you can use over and over and over again, and that just becomes your conference line. So that's definitely a great resource. You can always still stay in contact with your community organization over email. This is one that will never go away since the invention of email. It's going to stay. It's not going anywhere. People, may or may not read it, but it's one other tool that you can use. Of course, we have our social media opportunities like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, just to post updates or anything like that. And then if you have a community organization website, you can always post updates there as well. So these are just some of the tools that you can use right now that are either free or very low cost, or can be covered through your grant funds that you got either through the COVID Relief Act, the RRR funds, or for most organizations, you received a $1,000 grant that was not tied to COVID-19, but it was just a $1,000 grant. You can also use those funds to sign up and purchase a subscription to Zoom Business or Zoom Pro. And Janet says that she definitely wants to receive the cheat sheet from Vince to set up a Zoom call. We can make sure that we get that to you. Janet, let me just make a note here. So Janet wants the Zoom cheat sheet. Great, we can get that to you. Thank you. Alrighty. So I'm gonna introduce you guys to this fun little tool. I don't want to take credit for it because I did not create it. It was sort of something that I put together based on what I was seeing out there on the best practices for community organizations. But here's the idea with this. There are sort of 4 different ways that you can approach how to help during COVID. And I've just put them in this quadrant so that you could take this, get a piece of paper out, make 4 boxes for yourself and just jot down some ideas as we're going through this. So, and I'm going to start over here and go around clockwise. They all are interconnected, as you can see by these arrows, but I'm going to go over this whole thing real quick and then we'll dive into each one of these in a little bit greater detail. So the first thing, we'll just start up here at the top left, how to help. Things for you. These are things that you need to help yourself as we're getting into another round of possible lockdowns. And I hate to say it because I'm sure people don't even want to hear it, but some of the parts of the country have already done it. I'm sure other parts of the country will do it more. And even if we're not totally locked down, we're still under more isolation than what we were a year ago or 2 years ago. So it's important just to think about things that you can do for yourself that help to mitigate some of the stress and just the strange times that we're in. Then there are things that you can do for other individuals. So what is this? Just like, one-to-one things that you can do for other people. Then here we will be talking about things, activities, ideas that you can do for your community. So when I say your community, I'm talking about wherever it is that you might be. So like the Kansas City Cherokee community. So I'm talking about Kansas City, Mariah, I'm talking about Moody's Terracide in Northern Cherokee County, things like that. Like where you are, that local community, we'll talk about that here. And then here are things that you can do for your Cherokee organization. And I have this broken down into several additional buckets, and we'll go over those a little bit too. But generally, these are these 4 quadrants, and they all interrelate to one another. So I have found, and it's not just me, but science proves it. When you do things for others, when you give, when you are philanthropic and charitable, it does help you as an individual. You feel good. It releases good, endorphins and good hormones, and you'll feel a little bit better, just a little bit better. And that's, we'll all take a little bit better right now, I think. When you do for other individuals, it'll spark excitement in your community. But also when you help your community, when you go across this way, it benefits you as well. There are ways that our Cherokee organizations can work with our local communities to provide things that they need. And I think one of my favorite things about looking at these different relationships is what your Cherokee organization and what it can do for you and what you can do for it in this time, I think can really strengthen those Cherokee communities even more. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, and I think this will make even more sense. So we're going to start here with me. Okay, so how to help. Here are just some things that you can do for yourself right now in the middle of COVID. Self-care. Anything that you like to do, hobbies, making sure you give yourself time to relax, which I know if I'm talking to parents out there who are like trying to juggle working and childcare, you're like, whatever, relax isn't even in my vocabulary. I understand. If there's any way that you can give yourself even 5 minutes locked in the bathroom, I'm sure it's helpful. Or, you know, if you have older kids, maybe just explain to them, hey, we all need 5 minutes to ourselves or an hour to ourselves. Everybody go in your room, shut the door, be alone. You know, that can really be helpful. Any hobbies that you have or used to have that you kind of let go, pick that back up. For example, I have a fiddle and I like fiddle. I like playing the fiddle, but I just get really busy. And so I don't always practice. There have been different times during the last several months that I've picked up my fiddle and said, I'm going to play this again. I'm going to try this. It just is kind of a fun thing to do. Watch a movie, watch silly movies, something that's not dark and crazy and takes you down and makes you think. I've got a lot of friends right now that are into watching Emily in Paris, which is I think on Netflix or Hulu, and it's just about the silliest show out there, but it's absolutely the opposite of 2020. It's just like, oh, people are traveling, everybody's just having fun, it's great, it's silly. Allow yourself to indulge in those things right now because we need that break from all of the craziness and all of the stress. So it's okay to do that. I'm giving you permission if you need them. And then here's something that's really fun. I like to think about what it's going to be like, what the holidays are going to be like this year. They're definitely going to be different. I have like 14 nieces and nephews. I normally see them all at Christmas and we're all hugging and jumping on top of each other, but that's not going to happen this year. So what are the things that I can do this holiday season that are still going to bring me joy? I like to think of it as something that is going to just really help get me in the spirit. Things like drinking some tea that is holiday inspired. And I just got some tea from this Stephen Smith tea makers, and it's got like chocolate and oranges and it's really yummy. So those kinds of things that maybe I would just overlook and say, oh, I don't have time to sit down and drink a cup of tea. But I'm going to do it this year because it's a new way to make the holiday special. Think about new ways to enjoy the things that you miss the most. So like Donnie, you said you really missed chips and salsa at a restaurant. I get that. Me too. I miss going to one of the restaurants in town and getting like a charcuterie board. Those are kinds of things that I like. So I make my own. So Donnie, I know it's not the same, but maybe you can sit down and have some chips and salsa with Chuj and your little dog, and just have, try to enjoy those things in a new way and laugh at the silliness of it. I think humor is definitely going to get us through this as well. Do something normal with flair. I think when I wrote this, I was thinking about the charcuterie board, for example. Like, I might have some cheese and crackers, but this time, now that we're in COVID, I'm going to sit down with like some fancier crackers, and I'm going to have a glass of wine with it, what I normally wouldn't do. So anything that you can do that adds a little bit of excitement to it can help you. Read a book on a new topic, or journal. Somebody will probably want to read this someday. I mean, I ask my parents and when my grandparents were still alive all the time about, this historic event or that historic event. What was that like for you? Your kids, your grandkids, even just regular people might want to know what this experience was like, even though you're going to hope to forget it. It's a part of history. We're watching this unfold. So this is, that actually could be something that might help you kind of shake off some anxiety that you might have, but it's also going to be something that people will want to read in the future. Now I want to focus on things that we can do for other individuals right now while still staying safe. So there's this idea right now about micro actions, that there are these little things that we can all do for each other that might just collectively help us all get through these things. Things like waving to your neighbor. If you do live in, a downtown or, suburban area where there's people, just waving to your neighbor from a distance, smiling. Down here, I have compliment someone. Hey, I really like your sweater. Just little things to create connections with other individuals. Those are going to help you, and they're going to help other individuals as well. Reach out to someone you haven't talked to for a while that might be feeling isolated, especially those individuals who are super vulnerable, finding out if there's anything that you can do to help them right now. Organizing Zoom chats with friends with similar interests, starting a book club if you've never done that. Those are some different things that you can do that help you build that connection with other people. And I think that that's what's most important right now when we're feeling isolated because of all of the social distancing, because we're staying indoors, we're not going to large gatherings. Finding other ways to create connection is really the thing that's going to sustain us and get us all through this. Enjoy moments of love and wonder. And now I know this might sound a little like hippy dippy out there and all of that, but this is really a great time where we have to slow down and we're just not as busy so that we can enjoy those moments of love and wonder. Mariah, I'm going to pick on you because I know that you just posted this picture on Facebook the other day, but it was like this beautiful sunset and the sky was this gorgeous blue and there was just these trees in the background. And I think maybe your boys were sitting there talking about something that was really meaningful. Just enjoying that and just being with that for a moment can remind you to be grateful for what is here and what is working for us now. I had to go to the grocery store the other day to pick up something, and there was a little boy, he couldn't have even been 2 years old, and he was sitting in the shopping cart, and I think it was his grandfather that was standing there with him, and they were probably waiting on someone because they were just sort of standing next to some, thing, and the little boy was just playing with his grandfather's face, and they were both smiling, and they were both laughing, and it was just this sweet moment that made me remember, like, that's really what this is all about. Like, that's what life is all about, is having connections with people you love, even if you can't be with them in the moment. And these are just some ways that you can be with them and foster that connection, even if you can't be with them in person. So now we're going to talk about what you can do for your community. And again, we're talking about your local, like, geographic area that you are in. I would start by asking, like, who or what organizations need help. Direct services like food banks, or there might be public testing sites if that's something that you're able to help with. You can volunteer to do those things. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more in just a minute, but you might also be able to organize a way that your Cherokee organization could come together and help an organization who is doing direct services with something that they need. So I'll give you a quick example, a couple of them that I'm thinking about with direct services. A lot of homeless shelters are hurting right now. Like they may have funds coming in, but the shelters are oftentimes at capacity because they've had to limit the amount of people that they're allowed to have in their facility at a given time. So there might be some, like, logistical needs that homeless shelters might need, that maybe you have a resource or a way to help. You could also organize a food drive and make sure that those those items are getting to the recipients that need food. Again, that might be a homeless shelter or some other sort of soup kitchen. Tonight, for example, my sister-in-law is she's a nursing professor at one of the local universities, and they've paired up with the local board of health in the county health department, and they're doing a free public testing site for COVID, and there are nursing students who are going to do the actual nose swabs. I'm not doing that, but I am going to go tonight for a couple hours and label the test tubes. So that's something that you might be able to do. I feel comfortable doing that because I know we're going to be hyper protected, and I'm not in a high risk category. If you are in a high risk category, for the love of God, please don't do that. But if you are a relatively healthy person, and you think this might be something you could do, you could reach out to your health department and see if there's a way that you could do that. Hospitals probably need help. Another thing that I was thinking, our teachers, our school teachers right now are having a hard time keeping up with everything that they have to do. They are doing their best. School principals and administrators are all doing their best as well, but I'm sure that they could use a helping hand with some stuff behind the scenes. I know a lot of schools aren't letting additional people come in, but you could reach out to teachers or the local school system and see if there is a way that you or your organization might be able to support what they're doing. If you wanted to do something indirect or no contact, there are creative ways that you could think about that. If anybody has any ideas, you can pop those in the chat as well. Some of the things that I was thinking is, like, let's say you were, you had skills at developing a website or a web page, and maybe a local shelter needed some help updating their website or their Facebook page. You could offer to help do those kinds of things. Something like that, where it doesn't require you to be in contact with someone. Another thing, if you're able to, give blood. I know blood donations have been down and the need for additional blood is high. So if you're able to, if you're healthy enough and you meet the qualifications, give blood. That's really an important thing that you can do for your community. And it also impacts other individuals. Purchase gift cards from local businesses and restaurants right now, especially the non-chain ones, the small ones, those mom and pop stores. They're the ones who are going to feel this economic burden the greatest. So if you can, as an individual, as a family, if you're thinking about sending gift cards to people, Christmas presents to folks, try to purchase local and support them. I think there've been a lot of posts I've seen where people are, donating to nonprofits now, or they're maybe, even though they know that they might not be able to use the whole season tickets to their local theater, they're buying that season pass anyway, because they know that those local theaters depend on that. Anything like that that you can support economically those organizations in your community, also a good idea. Join a reading or discussion circle. There are a lot of really great national conversations happening right now. I certainly don't want to make this political, but if you felt so compelled to stretch your own comfort zone, joining a Black Lives Matter organization or reading circle or race relations circle, that might be able to help you understand things from a different perspective. Those are kinds of things that you can do to help your local community. But now I'm going to focus on what we can do with our Cherokee organizations right now. And this is what will comprise the bulk of today's presentation. Excuse me. So I'm going to sort of divide this up into 4 buckets. So there are Cherokee Nation provided resources. There's response to COVID-19 that you can have within your own community organization. There are activities that you can do for your CCO organization. And the 4th thing is deepening your connections with the people inside your organization. So we'll go through each one of those in greater detail now. I'm going to take a quick drink. Janet is sharing a great story with us in the chat that she said, unfortunately, her sister and husband got COVID. Unfortunately, he passed away, but her sister has given blood and plasma for over 2 months. And her sister, Janet's sister, has been informed that she saved 12 lives so far. through her blood and plasma donations, which I think really illustrates the importance of doing something like giving blood at this time if you're able to do that. So thank you, Janet. We're so sorry for your losses and hardships, but we really appreciate you sharing that story and seeing those moments of hope that do come out of this, which is give blood, and that can help 12 people get through this. That's really important. So thank you for sharing that. Our heart is out with you now. So here are the Cherokee Nation resources that you have available to your organizations. All of these organizations do. You can still do cultural presentations. We'll just do them over Zoom. You can still do history presentations. Same thing. We can do those over Zoom. The chief chats are still happening virtually. All of these things are available to your organizations as much as you want. If you haven't already been introduced to your at-large advisory committee member or liaison, this is a good time to meet with them, get connected with them. If you haven't heard from them, let me or Donnie or Abraham know, and we'll be happy to connect you with that person. I'm sure they've tried to reach out to you, but sometimes emails or phone numbers are bad and you can't, it's hard to connect, but this is a really good thing to do right now, is talk with your liaison about what concerns your organization has, because those do come back to us at CCO, and they also get relayed to the chief, who, together we produce programming for our community organization. So these things will be heard and we will be able to respond to them. Engage with the Idea to Impact program. That's something that I lead. If you haven't done that already, it's something I'm really excited to get you into. So we kind of go through a whole strategic planning process that takes your organization from this is where we are right now when we're really disorganized to being more organized and being more able to do things in your community that you want to do. So, I'm here for that. Let's do it. We can still do it virtually. That's how I work with most of my clients anyway, because we have, not clients, but our organizations, because we have to right now. And they're all over the country. So if that's something that you want to do, go through the strategic planning process. I'd love to do it. You'll always be able to see any updates or new programming, things like that, on the CCO Facebook page. And there's also, I didn't even know I didn't put this one on there, but this is a really good one. It'd be cool to learn Cherokee language. I know Cherokee Nation right now is putting out tons of free resources about learning Cherokee through COVID, during this COVID period. So that would be a really cool thing to do too, that you could do with your community organization. These here are just some tips on ways that your organization can respond to COVID-19. Okay, so we'll go through them and hopefully it'll make a little more sense. Some of the best practices for nonprofits or community orgs is to designate like one person or a small committee of people who are responsible for staying up to date on state and local regulations. Things like whether or not you have to wear a mask, which I think is pretty much like everywhere in the US right now, at least wear a mask. To stay up to date with how many people are allowed at gatherings. Those kinds of things. I think what schools are doing, just make sure that there's like sort of one person or maybe 2 or 3 people that are in charge of keeping track of that information and relaying it to the rest of the organization, so that they know what is okay, or when you should definitely meet virtually and things like that. Again, that person or committee can make decisions about how to meet based on the local statistics and science, and make good decisions about that, and communicate this with the organization's membership. And this can go beyond simply, just being about whether or not you should or how you can meet, but just to remind people to stay safe and let them know what's sort of what the authorities are saying about this in their local areas. Then, of course, we did have the Respond, Recover, Rebuild grant funds that were available from Cherokee Nation that were made available through the CARES Act. And those grant funds, and again, we'll talk about it for just a minute at the end of this presentation, for the most part, those grant funds have been or are in the very end process of being dispersed to the community organizations. I cannot say, I don't think any of us can say right now if there will be a second round of those available. But if you didn't get in on it this round and it's something you might be interested in, just, write down your ideas in case there is an opportunity that this can come through again. But this is another one of the resources that Cherokee Nation has made available to both its in-district and at-large organizations. So I want to talk for just a minute about some of the activities that you can do now. I want to tell a quick story. I have a mentor of mine, and because a lot of what I do is grant writing, I do a lot of writing, and she happens to be sort of one of my writing mentors. And she has said to this group of writers that I'm a part of, she said, what we're sort of like the baseline of who we are as individuals is what is coming out right now in this COVID period. So, but by this, she meant, hey, I'm in the habit of writing 750 words in my journal every day. And she said, so when COVID hit and things got crazy, I still wrote 750 words a day. And what that was showing was just that, like, okay, these good habits that we get into, if we have those good habits, they're going to sustain no matter what, really. Same thing, like, I'm a coffee drinker. Every morning I wake up and drink a cup of coffee. Doesn't matter what the weather is. I didn't miss a beat when it came to drinking coffee in the morning when COVID hit. I drink it every single day. So those habits that we have are going to stick with us even in times of crisis. So how we can apply that to our community organizations is by making sure that we've established good habits with our community organizations already. And if you haven't, or that's something that you think maybe we could get better at, now's the time to start doing those things so that when we come out of this, you're going to be even brighter and more robust than you were before. So here are some ideas for activities that you can do now to start establishing good habits for your organization. Organize a service day with another nonprofit or another local community organization that maybe just needs additional hands. It needs additional human power. I don't want to, again, encourage you to do something that's going to be risky to your health. But if there's a community organization that maybe you can do something behind the scenes, get your Cherokee organization to help whatever community organization there is to do those things. If you have any suggestions for what that might look like, go ahead and pop them in the chat. Same thing for sister communities. I know it's down here at the bottom. This is a great time to reach out to your sister community if you have one and see what frontline things they might need, and vice versa, and start that relationship now. Because everyone is sort of slowed down. Sure, we're chaotic and things all these external stressors are impacting us, but this is, again, a time to build connection. I think that is one silver lining that we can all find from this. Keep your regular meetings, just go virtual. I think that's a really good thing. So if you have a board meeting once a month or once a quarter, keep those, just take them virtual. If you are doing activities, I think that one of the groups out on the East Coast, the capital city Cherokee community, they're still doing their webinar. So there's a presentation and they're just doing it using Zoom Pro, and whoever the host is does the presentation for them. And then if there's a Q&A at the end, that's great. Keep doing those things. Doesn't mean you need to stop. In fact, this is a great time to sort of put it into high gear and do even more if you have the capacity to do so. So if you wanted to do like a presentation, I'm just going to use like mini stickball sticks because that's what came to my head. You might be able to get the supplies for those things and mail that out, like have people register for that, mail out those supplies ahead of time. I know that the Cherokee Heritage Center outreach program has started doing this because they can't go into schools or civic organizations, so they're starting to mail those things. Shanista Cloud over there is a great resource if you're interested. Would be happy to connect you with them. But that they're mailing out supplies and doing virtual presentations as well right now. So that could be something fun in addition to the regular CCO cultural and history presentations. If you are so inclined and maybe your organization is suffering a little bit financially, I know they all are one way or another because we haven't been able to do our typical Chiefs picnics, which is where a lot of the organizations get funding that supports their scholarships and other projects and programs throughout the year. But maybe you could organize a silent auction. So do those normal things that you would normally do, make earrings or bracelets or moccasins or t-shirts or something, and just sell them online, do an auction online. In fact, one of the nonprofits here in my local area, every end of the year, the holiday season, they have what's called the Festival of Trees. And it's this really wonderful thing. It's for a local theater. It's a, what's not antique, not vintage, it's an old theater in town. And they usually have these auctions where they sell these beautiful, over-the-top, opulent Christmas trees, and they're wonderful. And it's one of my favorite fundraisers of the year. Everybody looks forward to the Festival of Trees with the Paramount Theater. But they can't do it in person this year. So they went virtual with it. They went online with it. And so every day for like a week, I'm getting these text messages that are like, hey, don't forget about the silent auction. So those kinds of things might be something you could entertain as well. Develop topics for 6 months. For the next 6 months, like, hey, this is what we're going to talk about over the next 6 months, and email out that list of topics to your organization so that they can put it on their calendar and be aware of what those are. Again, these are things that you could decide or discuss at your regular board meetings or your membership meetings. And again, this is a good time to reach out to the sister community. And Janet has a question here in the chat, and it looks like Donnie already answered it, but I will read through it too. It just says, are we allowed to use some of the CARES Act money? That's the Respond, Rebuild, Recover grant to give to our sister city. And Donnie said, I'm not sure about the answer, but she will find out. So we can get back to you on that, Janet, and try to get that same information out to everybody else too. So it's a great question though. Thank you for asking that. And again, this will be our last bucket for Cherokee Nation resources, but this is a good time to really deepen connections within your group. So we did have the opportunity while CCO members were still traveling to have conversations with board like the different at-large organization board leadership. And one of the things that we heard time and again was that, we really want our community organization, our CCO community, at-large Cherokee organization, to feel like we are family. So, at the Chiefs picnic, we have a lot of programming going on, and sometimes people want to just be able to sit and talk with one another. This right now, this time is sort of like a gift from the universe where you can deepen those connections by setting aside a time, maybe once a month, 1 hour, 2 hours a month, where everybody, you just send out a link for a Zoom meeting to your Cherokee Nation membership and say, hey, we're going to have sort of this loose topic, and we're just going to talk. We're just going to get to know each other a little bit better. And this might be an opportunity to deepen the connections between individuals within your group without sort of any hidden agenda. Hey, there's not really anything we need to do except just get to know each other a little bit better. And again, this can help people battle that social isolation that we're all feeling in one way or another. You can shoot for these kind of, I just came up with a, title. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but literally Cherokee family check-ins. Maybe that could be something that you do once a month just to deepen those connections. And choosing those sort of loose topics that will engage many people. Could be something like genealogy. They could be recipes that have been passed down, traditional foods, sports. The Cherokee Heritage Center just did at the beginning of the year, it actually got kind of shut down a little early because because of COVID, but they did a really cool exhibit on the early years of baseball and how I think it was Cherokees particularly, but I think the exhibit included other Native American communities, Native American tribes too. Those individuals who were a part of those early years of like the MLB. That's a cool topic. So you could do something on sports, just different topics throughout the year that would bring a lot of people in to learn and to talk about these things. You could start a Cherokee book club. There were, I meant to bring them. I have them here at my house, but there's like several Cherokee books that would be cool to read and then just discuss. Our very own CCO's Brad Wagnon is a published author, and he has books for kids. So you could even do like, maybe like a 30-minute or even a, 15-minute Cherokee book reading for kiddos, so that the kids have an opportunity to strengthen and deepen those connections with what it means to be Cherokee during this time. So those, again, just some ideas I'm throwing out. If you have any other ideas, pop them in the chat, because other people want to hear these things. These are just things that I thought about based on some of the best practices right now for deepening connections during this time of COVID. I've had some people just get together and have casual conversations about how strange this time is. That's kind of what we're doing right now. It's just like, wow, this is really weird. How are we going to get through this? That's okay. Have those conversations. Another fun thing that you could do would be virtual museum exhibits. I know that most museums that have any sort of bandwidth are doing virtual exhibits right now. And so that would be really cool. I know the Heritage Center is doing it. I think the Cherokee Museum is also doing it. A lot of the museums in Oklahoma and around the country are doing that. So that might be something fun where maybe your membership, you say, hey, we're going to, next Tuesday, we're going to get together and talk about this virtual museum exhibit that we had. And then you give people a link to that, and they can watch the exhibit tour, take a virtual tour of the exhibit. And then you guys get together on that Tuesday and talk about it. What were some of the interesting things that you learned? Or, how did this deepen your experience on this topic, or your knowledge on this topic? Oh, this is great. Donnie just let us know that Abraham Bearpaw, who's a new member of CCO, he's here on the panel today. He's co-authored a book with Cynthia Ruiz, who is she's a member of one of the California organizations, and she's also one of the at-large advisory committee member and liaisons. So that's really cool. All these different things that you can do to deepen your connection within your group. And when you're deepening those connections, some of those other things like helping other organizations in your local community are strengthened, and it gives you the excitement and the passion, and to also want to help other individuals. And I think that this is a time where we can reflect about some of the struggles that Cherokee people have had to endure throughout history, and understanding that you come from that lineage, and that is truly important to, it's not just in your DNA, but it's in your cultural DNA, and that this is an opportunity, to really embrace that and learn more about what it means to be Cherokee in times of struggle, because we all help each other. That's just what happens, that we thrive. And so that this is really an opportunity for this arrow here, for you and your Cherokee organization to help one another. And when you have a really strong connection here, these other things become very easy and very natural. And again, they just become part of your habit and who you are. So what can you do right now? What you can do today before we hop off of here, because I know we just have 1 minute and I'm going to go through this really fast. Take at least one idea from each of these 4 categories and give yourself a deadline for accomplishing it. Just write it down. And it doesn't have to be these ideas that I gave you. They could be ideas that you had that maybe sparked from this presentation. Write it down and then share with members of your organization. Maybe set up one of those informal sort of Cherokee family check-ins and just talk about what you've done to help yourself during this time. But I'm going to switch gears here, and for just a few moments as we wrap up, I want to talk about the Respond, Rebuild, Recover grant reports that are going to be coming up. So once again, these grants were made available through the CARES Act. So the federal funds came down to and the nation very quickly was able to respond, which I just, once again, I'm floored by the leadership that was able to happen in such a short period of time. Up to $2,000 were available to the at-large organizations. You probably know if you've applied for these funds because it required an application. Lots of emails were coming from CCO, Kevin, Brad, Donnie, myself about this. There's been multiple webinars held about this. So you should know if you applied for it and you got a check for it. Yes, thank you. And Donnie said to take our time. If anybody needs to catch us, if you need to leave, go ahead. This will be posted. So it'll be posted in the next couple of days. So, you know, if you have to leave, that's fine. And you will be getting plenty of updates from us requesting this kind of information. So your organization was eligible for up to $2,000 that could, there was a very narrow yet vague language about how you could use these funds, but for the most part, most of the organizations were using these funds to purchase grocery gift cards that were then distributed to Cherokee and non-Cherokee members of their local community who were in need. They might have also purchased COVID basics, things like masks and hand sanitizer, those kinds of things. And then some organizations also use these funds to cover a loss in funding that would have gone towards scholarships. So for example, let's say your Chiefs picnic happened during the summer and we had to cancel it because of the COVID travel restrictions. But you know, you would have made $1,500 off of your fundraisers that at that event, and those $1,500 went to sponsor scholarships. You could have used funds for that. Anyway, those were some of the direct services to local communities that were eligible for were eligible through this grant opportunity. Again, if your organization did this, you probably are aware that you've done this. Receipts for this, as well as the COVID impact forms, are due on December 15th. So that's coming up in less than a month. They will be emailed to this email right here, crfgrants@cherokee.org. I will be reaching out to all of the at-large organization in the coming weeks just to touch base with you to make sure that you're on track to spend your money and see if you have any specific questions. And if I don't have the answer to those questions, I'll certainly try to seek them out for you. But I just wanted to make sure that we all know that this deadline for getting all the COVID impact forms and receipts is due on December 15th. And just kind of give you some ideas for how you might start to organize those. Make sure that you have all the COVID impact forms that were signed. I see here Donnie just said that Cherokee Nation is trying to get a deadline for reporting extended a little bit, but there's no word yet, so we just can't be sure. So we're still going to aim for December 15th as our target date to have all of this sent to crfgrants@cherokee.org. If you have lots of different receipts, like maybe you went to your local grocery store and you got, a chunk of gift cards, and then you got another chunk of gift cards, and then you had to buy the masks at another store and hand sanitizer at another store. You could either scan those in individually, or what I like to do is take one piece of paper and just tape them all on there. And maybe just write a little note, Walmart, July 15th, but should say on the receipt anyway. But you can kind of just put a little note about what that is for and scan in as many of those as you need. And that's just kind of an easy way to to do that. Remember that any gift cards that were distributed do require that COVID impact form. And I apologize, I don't have that up right now, but it was just that one piece of paper that said, and then you would state your name, have been adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And then they sign and date it. So again, any gift cards, so you should have like a one-to-one match on those gift cards and the COVID impact forms. If you have any questions at all, I'm here to help. If you need help with figuring out how to, the best way to put those together, anything like that, just discuss ideas about the reporting or any of these other ideas for how you can keep your organization going during this time of COVID, any of those things at all, you can always email me, you can always call me, you can always text me, you can always find me on Facebook and message me there. I would say that's not always the most reliable. The best way to get a hold of me is just to email me or text maybe, but I am available for your help. I want to make sure that if you have any questions right now, you can raise your hand and we'll try to answer them, or you can pop your questions in the chat if you have. So I'll be here for a few more minutes if anybody does have any questions, but I know that we're 6 minutes over, and if you need to go, please feel free to. And thanks so much for coming today. Whether you are watching this recording later, thanks for your time, and if you're watching this live, thanks for being here with us live. So I'm going to stick around for a few more minutes to answer any questions, but if you need to go, feel free to do so. And thank you so much. Thanks, Patsy. Kansas City, I know you guys have a question here. The question is, are there any further required reporting requirements for the $2,000 COVID grant beyond the itemized receipts and the signed COVID impact forms? I think that's it for now. What I was told was that that will happen first, that you need to send the itemized receipts and the signed COVID impact forms to this email here, crfgrants@cherokee.org. Probably not a bad idea to CC the cco-grants@cherokee.org as well when you send those in, and then someone from the finance department may get a hold of you for additional information if it's needed. But again, I will also be reaching out to all of the at-large organizations that received CARES Act funds, and we'll make sure that I work with you one-on-one to get everything that we need. Mariah said, will there be a final report for non-at-large grants for larger sums awarded? Yes, everybody's going to have to report. I am not fully prepared to answer all of the requirements that the in-district organizations will have, but I'm sure that somebody will be getting hold of you on those as well, Mariah. Because like I said, I don't know exactly what they're going to report for those larger grants, because I know you guys got like a lot of money to work on your community building. So I can check into that, and we'll be in contact with you as well. Janet asked, can we give grocery gift cards and PPO to members in need? And do we mark that info on the actual signed forms? I'm not sure. Donnie, I might need your help here to let the Kansas City Cherokee community come on so that we can hear them talk. I know there's a way to do that.
Okay, let me.
Because I'm not sure I understand.
Sorry, everyone. I'm still trying to figure things out.
Yeah, me too. Thanks everyone for your patience as we work this.
Let's
see.
To talking permitted should be okay to
I'm
go.
unmuted. Hi, Lindy.
Hi.
Hi, Abraham and everyone. My quick question is, someone gave me their impact form and decided to draw outside the lines. They signed it, they printed their name, they dated it, and then the right-hand corner next to the box for Cherokee Nation, they wrote out their address. Is that going to be acceptable? Usually when forms are like that, if you color outside the line, they're not acceptable.
I would say, and Donnie, feel free if you've got some insight onto that. If you could, my thought would be as long as the information that was requested on the form, including their name and signature and the date they signed, is on the form, even if it's outside the lines, must have been an artistic type. Maybe I would think that as long as the information is on the form, that it would be accepted. Donnie, do you have thoughts on that?
I really don't. I haven't done a whole lot on this end with the CARES Act.
Sure.
So we would probably need to find out from Kevin for sure.
Okay. I'm going to make myself a note to double check that. And Melissa, is that you that we're talking to?
Yes.
Okay. It just says Kansas City Cherokee Community, but I thought it was you. So I just wanted to make sure I knew who to contact with that. We'll double check with that. I'm going to say, is the wonky form okay?
A wonky form.
The wonky form. Because if it was something that, it's not going to be accepted, then I certainly want to make sure that you have enough time to go back to that person and say, hey, can you fill this out the right way? And then
Exactly.
Thank you so much. That I know we didn't answer your question, but we'll do our best to get you an answer. And for anybody who's still listening at this point, we just want to say thank you so much for your flexibility. There's been so many things going on to try to, deploy this great program, but there's still lots of questions
Yeah,
for us too.
When we first started, Janet Mukri from San Diego, I think had her hand up. Janet, do you have, we can press the button here if you would like to speak, if you have something.
And Janet also had another question. I would love to bring her on if you're still there, Janet, just so that we can answer your other question as well.
I'm going to bring her on now.
Thank you.
Okay. Should be good.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hi, Janet.
Okay, yay. Okay, so my question was, because we are going to give the grocery gift cards, and we wanted to give masks, so I know each gift card goes with one form. So how do we show that the masks that we're purchasing, or gloves or whatever, also go with that one individual? Would that be marked on the actual signed wonky form, or see, we listen, or how do we do that, or does it matter? Maybe that doesn't really matter.
I think the answer is, if you're passing out those COVID impact forms, the things that people needed to sign and date, those are only required for cash or equivalent payouts. So that would be the gift card. So if you're doing, give masks away, give away hand sanitizer, those things don't require the COVID impact form. It's just something that has a cash value to it, like the gift card requires those. So you don't need to record
just give you all the receipts with all the information on the receipts taped on paper. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Thank you so much.
Donnie, is that how you understand it? That's my understanding, unless something has changed in the last 3 days.
I think so. I think you may be more expert on this than I am, though.
Sorry. Okay, I think that's right. So that's what they've told us from the beginning, is if you don't, if it's stuff, it's food, if it's stuff like that, then you don't need a COVID impact form. So.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thanks for a good question. Great question. I think we answered all the questions. Unless anybody else has a question, you want to pop it in the chat or raise your hand. We can try to address those now. I don't see any. again, if you do have questions that you think about later today and you want to email me those questions, text me, hey, I have, something came up, feel free to email or call me, and we'll be, if I don't answer, just leave me a message. I will respond. Otherwise, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I hope you found this to be helpful. If you want to let me know one thing that you're going to do, one idea that you've taken from today, and you want to pop that in the chat, that'd be great too. Otherwise, I will let you all go, and it was great to be here with everybody, even if it was not in person. This is what we're still trying to do, create those connections. So thank you so much.
Well, Lindi.
Well,
Good to see and hear everybody.
absolutely. Thank you, Donnie. Well,
Everybody take care.
be safe, be healthy.